Okay. Hello, everybody. I apologize for the delay. Had a little technical issues at this end. And again, hopefully you can all hear me and see the screen as well. And this is being recorded, so we will send you a copy of this. Those that need to jump off, I told you it was going to be half an hour. Please, know that you'll get a copy of this recorded session and that we're going to get this to you ASAP. So today we want to talk about the certificate in professional impact analysis. It's very exciting. We're offering this from the business school for the first time. It's been in the economics department for actually a few years, and we've updated it, revised it, improved upon it, etc. And we're quite excited about the program. I've got colleagues. I've got Kit Chan, who you heard and helped me set up on this. I ran from my office to hers. And I've got Christina as well on the call. And welcome to the team for sure. But thank you for taking time out of your day. We will be very respectful of time and make this as tight as possible to half an hour. Leave room for questions. And if you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A in the chat section. So let's begin today and start and acknowledge that Queen's University, Smith School of Business, this office, our studio are all situated on traditional Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee territory. And there's also a significant Métis community, and there are First Peoples from all other nations across Turtle Island present today. We're grateful to be able to live, to learn, to play, to present this session today on these sacred lands. So welcome to everybody. Welcome back to many of you. I know there are a lot of alumni that we've had from the various MBA and MIB and other programs here at Queen's. And I know that we've reached out and we've attracted a number of other students as well. We have 147 that have signed up for this webinar. So most of you are not on the call. I respect that we're going to send this to you and you'll hear this after the fact. So welcome to you in absence, but welcome to those that have taken the time to join today. My name is Glenn Hollis. I am a former director here running the Accelerated MBA program, and I now run the CPIA program that we're going to talk about today. And this is part of the Center for Entrepreneurship, Innovation, and Social Impact. And we're quite excited about this program. So just to give you sort of a 30,000-foot overview of the story here and how we got into this and why it makes such sense to be a part of the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship and Social Impact. Great brands and, again, great companies, organizations have this greater sense of purpose. You've heard of that. And think about great companies, great brands, great organizations that care about the people, planet, communities. And these are leaders in these organizations. And as part of these great brands, they put their money where their head and their heart is. And that's really showing up in impact programs that we'll talk a lot about and impact projects, this idea of doing good. And we'll talk about how there are business activities, investments that are going to do good. And there's those things in the consumer or in the corporate social impact spaces as well. So great brands command a higher value, enjoy more customer loyalty, greater productivity from their employees, etc. And they have good standing in their community. So plain and simple, doing good, this idea of doing good and doing more good for an organization is very successful. And again, ultimately, it is good for the world. So that's a lot about what drove this, the development of this program. So this is the only program that measures good. You'll Google, you'll see that there is a similar program at Oxford in the UK. But again, it's not as in-depth as this and doesn't ultimately certify you to be able to look at and analyze impact and social impact. So this idea of measuring good, our mission is very clear. We want to enable leaders like you to measure good, very simply, so you can do more good. And that's the thrust of what we've really put together in terms of designing this program and what you'll learn through the modules that I'll talk about. So I'd ask you to prepare yourself for this sort of evidence-based thinking, a new way of looking at social impact. And as I say, we're quite excited about this program. So let me just talk a little bit about what is good. Impact investment, this idea of well-being, could be for citizens, communities, all of the above, program beneficiaries, customers, employees. And it's looking at this idea of effected change in well-being. And it is anything from stability and resilience, equity and poverty alleviation, quality of life, etc. And that is really what we're looking at when we look at these impact projects, programs. We want to measure the value of them and then critically be able to report the value. So this idea of good, really think of two sides of the ledger. So impact investment falls into two sides. One is, you're familiar with these, corporate social responsibility projects, efforts, activities. Think of CIBC's Run for the Cure or Tim Hortons Children's Foundation as two very simple examples that you're probably very familiar with. And then there's also business for good, good efforts that come out of business projects. One of our alumni from the Accelerated MBA, I think Stephen's on the call. Stephen Kay is a senior exec at Ocean Steel. And his customers said, we'd really like to look into this idea of green steel, steel that is produced and it's better for the environment. And it's obviously a very good business approach to look at this because customers are asking for it. But the residual benefit of that is, what good is that for the world? And that's part of what you'll also measure as well, in addition to this idea of corporate social responsibility. Warby Parker, glasses, buy a pair, give a pair. Or we look at another alumni that is from the Suncor organization that really is leading some of the work with Petrocan and some of the other retail outlets to look at this idea of removing plastic. So those are two examples. I'm going to go into more detail as we get through this presentation, but I want to be able to give you a sense of the two different types of projects that you'll be able to measure with rigor and evidence-based, and that's the critical difference of this particular program. So how do you measure these good investments is a big question that we get asked all the time. So organizations are great at tracking all kinds of things. You know this. I know that I've got many accountants, many that work in finance on this call. So you look at financial performance, of course, as key indicators of a company, an organization, customer sat, productivity, employee engagement, et cetera, et cetera. But we don't really understand how to critically measure this idea and report on social, environmental, and wider economic impacts in everything that you do, everything that an organization does. We do have some measures of that, but not with the same rigor and discipline as financial reporting. And that's really what we're talking about. Good news is you can, and we can start to do that. So there's best practices that exist out there, and the professors have put together, and I'll talk about the three professors that are running this. It was born out of the economics department, now into the business school, now into the Center for Entrepreneurship, Innovation, and Social Impact. Tools, methods that can be used to define and quantify the claims of impact. If an organization says we do good, how can they measure that? How should they measure that? And how do they report that? And ultimately, how can they get permission from stakeholders to do more of that? And that's really what we're talking about here, so that we drive up the confidence to do more. So we want to establish these accountable measures for stakeholders because they're asking for it, they're demanding it. And this is really customers, employees, suppliers, shareholders, community, government, massively increasing demand. We're hearing more and more of this. And really it's, try and understand as an organization or society, are we getting value out of where we place our limited dollars? And you can imagine why shareholders would ask this question, or for that matter, employees in an organization or customers as they're paying for a product. If I'm going to pay a premium for a product, why should I? Why would I? And if this company happens to be doing good, they may be doing well, but are they doing good? And then how do you measure both sides of that? We understand how to measure good or how to measure well. Certainly when we look at, are we moving the needle in terms of driving up revenue, profitability, et cetera? But how do we measure good? And we want to do more good, no wasted energy. We want to move beyond these minimal compliances. And we also want to broaden the organization's footprint and forefront when it comes to measuring and understanding the broader impacts of this. So that is really what's driving this program, what built this program. So we want to train leaders like you through this disciplined and rigorous impact analysis. And there are measures and proxies of how various organizations measure good. But this is really about certifying you as a professional impact analyst and building knowledge and tools. You're going to get a toolbox out of this, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the three different modules that build up this program are Impact Foundation, Impact Accounting, and then this idea of evaluating impact and learning more about impact and its application. So we think of this in terms of financial accounting. We're very good at measuring. The main objective there is we want to measure an organization's success. It's doing good because we want to make better decisions, where to put limited dollars. And we also, as a secondary objective, we have to be compliant. And when it comes to reporting, think of shareholders' reports, or if it's a private company, how we're reporting out to our employees or our limited shareholders. So in this case, we want to arm you with this same rigor. And this is social impact accounting and management, reporting social impact right alongside financial returns. And that's important because there's more and more demand for that from those stakeholders that I talked about. When you can do that, you're making better decisions. So the certificate professional impact analysis allows you to do that with rigor and transparency using evidence-based tools that are taught in the program. So you should think of yourself in this program, and this is about leaders. And many of you, as I've talked to and been out there talking about the program with many folks, a lot of organizations don't have this in place right now, this idea of a leader who's going to lead the measure of social impact or impact analysis. And this is a burgeoning part of the business and organizations out there, business, not-for-profit, NGOs, government, more and more demand for leaders who are able to measure, quantify, and report out impact. And change makers, as we've talked about in organizations. And when we talk about leaders, this is about leaders of today in many organizations, but certainly leaders of tomorrow as we look at where organizations and companies are going. So let me just give an overview. Again, happy to answer questions. Feel free to put them in the chat, put them in the Q&A, and we'll answer what we can at the end of this. Or I'm going to give you my email at the end of this. I'll leave lots of time for you to take it down. And feel free to reach out to me individually, personally, one-on-one, and I'm happy to answer questions as well. So let's talk a little bit about the modules or this program. We talk about it is a 6-month program. It's over 6 weeks, each of the 3 modules. And this is meant to be, and again, it's all recorded and online as far as the lectures. They are 3-hour lectures, 4 3-hour lectures over those 6 weeks, a quiz at the end of each of the lectures. And it's all online, and it's meant to be consumed as quickly or as leisurely as you like. And there's going to be ample time to connect with the professors live and have Q&A and coffee chat sessions. But at the end of each of the 3 modules, after those 6 weeks where you go through those 4 different lectures, there's going to be a capstone. And that's an opportunity to gather together live, but virtual, where you're with other students that are taking the program. You're formed into teams virtually. So again, you're working in the comfort of your office, your home. We're not asking you to move to Kingston, to the Queen's University campus. We're not asking you to even travel here during capstone days. This is intended to be very flexible, very manageable, and very accessible. So each of the modules, each of the 3 modules is 20 hours. So there are 4 3-hour lectures recorded, and then there is a day on a Friday, and it's well laid out in terms of its timing on the website. But it's a day where you gather virtually, you're formed into teams, you work with the professors, and you work with coaches, and you work through that capstone day. And then we've got 2 other sessions as well. So it is, again, 3 modules. Each module is 4 lectures, and at the end of each of the modules is a capstone. And then, of course, there is the certification exam at the very end of all of this, which, again, is designed to work on and build off all of the lectures you've taken, all of the capstones, and, again, make sure that you are certified as a impact analyst. 2 intakes a year. We've got one coming up in January. Very excited about that. We've already started to gather a number of students together. And again, I know many of you are on the call as well. Thank you for agreeing to be on the call. So it's good to hear from, talk to many of you, and hopefully many more of you that will be a part of this as well. And I know that I've got a lot of AMBA alumni on the call as well. And I've talked to Warren and Oz and James, and Kirsten as part of this, and Stephen K from Ocean Steel, et cetera. So we're excited about this. So the faculty that we've got, I mentioned that this originally came out of the economics department here at Queen's University. Dr. Kashi and Dr. Cotton put this together about 7 years ago and really built this rigorous, disciplined, evidence-based approach to looking at measuring impact. since then, in the last year, Dr. Murray, Dr. Elspeth Murray from the business school has worked with each of Dr. Kashi and Dr. Cotton to really build in a broader sense of business and bring it into the business school. These three are amazing, wonderful professors, great faculty, well-versed in terms of looking at and measuring and understanding impact, and something that we're quite pleased in offering starting in January. So it's $7,500, the program. And again, this is, of course, tax credit deduction capable. And many of you, as I've talked about, are already looking at your training budgets, personal training budgets to apply to this. And we're quite excited about offering this. 3 content modules, 3 full-day live sessions as part of this, 60 hours in total for the program. Very flexible, very accessible. Team coaching is part of this at the capstone, pre-read material, cases, etc. And then weekly access to coffee chats with the professors. And of course, a certification from the Queen's Business School, Smith, and from Queen's University as a certificate in professional impact analysis. So I want to just slow down a little bit and talk about the 3 modules. This is by no means a full and in-depth overview, but it'll give you a sense of what you'll be learning. I've had a number of questions. Raul, I know you're on the call. You've asked about this program. How is it different from the Oxford program? What will I get out of this? What are the tangible, genuine, real pieces I can take away, bring to the office tomorrow, those kind of things. So the first module, and again, this is 4 lectures. The first module is looking at gaining an overview of the concept of impact, understanding how it resides within an organization, its impact on society. And you're going to start to learn to assess and define impact in decision-making and strategy. Things you'll learn: justify the need for rigorous impact analysis, identify impact decision-making, choosing methods and techniques for qualitative approaches and quantitative approaches in assessing impact. And then looking at evidence, finding evidence, really building up these toolbox and templates of how you're going to go about measuring it. And then being able to ultimately bring that forward to the stakeholders that are demanding this kind of rigor. The second module looks at impact accounting. And this is the application in the program where it looks at the accounting toolbox to track, document, report benefits, costs, decision-making criteria, risks, etc. This is not necessarily an accounting course. This is very much looking at how do we use accounting-like tools and apply it to the world of impact, social impact, CSR, business impact projects. And this is going to look at conducting impact analysis, value for money, cost analysis, impact accounting to analyze the theory of change, estimating, reporting alternative decision makings, AB, ABC. What if we put money here? We'll talk about a Tim Hortons case in a minute. And then impact accounting designed to really succeed in interventions and innovative financial mechanisms. And ultimately prioritizing. Where do we put our money to make the biggest impact? We want to do well, but we want to do good. How do we balance those two? The third module is looking at using the toolbox as an evaluative approach and learning to facilitate data collection, experimentation, really mastering the approach. And this is why you will be certified as in the analysis area of social impact. So measuring what matters. How do we find evidence? How do we build an evidence culture, an evidence-based culture, and ensure that we are standing out from others that are attempting to measure impact programs? This is going to be a rigorous, disciplined approach to doing that and really stand out. And then, of course, the quantitative data, best practices, ethics. And then critically, there's pitfalls that may arise. How do you avoid those? How do you share those so that you can go around them, go through them? And then ultimately, this is the big piece. You've got all of these stakeholders that are asking for, are we moving the needle? Is our good doing good? What does that mean? How do we measure it? Should we do more of it? This is looking at building the stories. How do we take the data and how do we create great narrative around that? And how do we ultimately influence people, influence organizations to do more of this? And ensure that we're satisfying all of the stakeholders that are asking for this demand and this rigor. So a very quick overview of the 3 different modules. Each one of the modules is 4 lectures recorded. Each of them is 3 hours. And then there's a capstone that really brings it to life at the end. So let me just talk quickly about some of the impact cases that we've already included in the program. So this is an example to give you a sense of this balance between two sides of the ledger, those that are in the corporate social responsibility space and those that are in the business projects that have a good or residual impact benefit. So Coca-Cola was looking at switching to social plastic, this idea of recycled plastic from developing countries. So questions arise, and how do we measure this? Is it socially justifiable? Is it financially viable? And can we do this at scale? Because think about Coke and how big Coke is. So cases like that we'll look at. RBC, I know that a couple of you on the call are from RBC, and this is looking at reporting on social return on investment. What's a defensible methodology? What additional data is needed? How do we ensure that we are satisfying the demands and the rigor of our stakeholders? Tourmaline oil, switching to natural gas powered engines. What's the impact on the greenhouse gas emissions footprint? What's the net financial and economic impact? So these are tangible examples. Impossible Foods, looking at producing plant-based meat internationally, understanding the feasibility of this. How do we gain local support? How do we measure what could be and project the value of this? But how do we ensure that we can keep moving the project forward? Or at what point do we want to stop it because our measures have indicated that it no longer makes viable sense? And these are important business decisions. World Health Organization and the International Finance Corp, advocating for investments in food safety infrastructure. How do you measure improvements? What does it cost? What's the value in health and trade? So these are examples, along with others. Tim Hortons, the foundation, the Tim Hortons Children's Foundation, looking at and supporting economically disadvantaged children. Should we invest in another children's camp? We've got camps across Canada and the US. Should we build another one? Because we're having this great benefit. Well, how do you measure that value of doing that kind of good? Drawing more from franchisee rent royalty and advertising. Should we? Could we? Is there permission to do that among our franchise community? Asking customers, do you want another camp? Do you want to help fund it? And then the other big one is this idea of trade-off analysis. Should we do that? Or should we look at another project? Think of some of the other things, Timbits Hockey, Smile Cookies, other projects and programs that go on in various communities. Another way to look at this, and this is where I talk about two sides of the ledger. This one looks at that corporate social responsibility, that idea of philanthropy, doing good straight out. And this one for Tim Hortons looks at business and the residual benefits of doing good, doing well, and doing good with that. So things like, should we sell fair trade coffee or should we invest in a coffee partnership program? They chose the latter. Should we look at fair hiring practices? What's the benefit of that when it comes to our employee engagement and ultimately building a network of employees that have that much broader understanding of and thinking? And then this idea of sustainable distribution, looking at the distribution centers and thinking, should we move those all from gas-powered trucks? And they've got a fleet of them. Should we look at converting those to all electric? What's the benefit of that? What's the business benefit? How do we measure it? And what's the economic and environment and social impact? And how do we measure it? And how do we report on both? So who should attend this program? We're coming down to the last couple of slides. And again, I thank you for your patience with this as we got late starting. But we want to look at and talk to and involve and engage you, leaders of tomorrow, who want to make a difference. And I've talked to a lot of people, especially those that I've talked to in the programs that I've run in the past. I know a lot of you have this sense of wanting to make a difference, which is admirable, and certainly something that we can help fuel with a program like this. So this is a special interest program to leaders and managers in all organizations. They want to make and understand an impact, but they also want to be very rigorous, disciplined, and evidence-based when it comes to measuring key performance indicators and measuring the value of a particular program. It's a burgeoning career opportunity. It's a career opportunity that's being written at some corporations and some organizations, but it's those other organizations that will demand this in the future. I want to share a quote with you from one of the professors, Dr. Kashi. And Bauman said, "We now have access to a long and evolving list of tools and frameworks to measure and manage social impact. What are the jobs of tomorrow? The Chief Impact Officer will need the foundational knowledge to choose the most relevant frameworks and methods for her or him to define, measure, manage, monitor, and evaluate, and critically tell the story, deliver the knowledge to stakeholders." So that's what we did when we put this program together, was we created this framework such that it's got application in both the corporate social space as well as business decision-making space that happens to have good value and opportunity to do good and do well. So I'll leave this up for a minute. Think of any questions you've got. I'll go to the Q&A in a minute. But again, please go to the website, Certificate in Professional Impact Analysis, and also feel free to reach out to me. Glenn with two N's .hollis, Hollis at QueensU. That's a U on the end .ca. Absolutely feel free to reach out to me with any questions. We're building the class for January. We've got another one planned for July. I'd love you to be a part of the program in January, and happy to talk to you about that. I know we've got quite a few that are lined up now and on the call. So I'm grateful that you've taken the time out of the day to be a part of this call, and look forward to chatting with everybody. So thank you for your time. Christina in the background, thank you, and for all your support in the program and through the center, of course, and for Kit in helping to set this call up, and her patience as we got a little late starting. Your patience for sticking with this. And if you're listening to this in recording, we'll send it out to everybody. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk about this program, its relevance to you, your organization, whether that's a for-profit organization, a not-for-profit, a government. We've got a number of people from across the spectrum. We've got mayors on the call. I know you know who I'm talking to, and people from various organizations that are a part of this. So thank you. So I'll go to the Q&A, and let's just see if we can do this. Let's see what we've got. Okay. Let's see what we've got. Okay. Any questions you've got, please feel free to throw them in there. Okay. Andrea, speaking of mayors, what preparation do you recommend for 9 financial leaders? You know what? There's no preparation required at all, Andrea. Again, I'd ask you to think about what you currently do in your organization. I know what you do, but bring those sort of ideas forward. Where you measure right now, how you measure, and then what you'd like to measure when you think of programs that you're running for your organization. There's no financial requirement to this program. You don't need to be accountants, CPAs, CAs, not by any stretch, not work in the financial area necessarily. We welcome them. Obviously, those that are on the call, those that may be in marketing, corporate communications, government, not NGOs, etc. So I would just say, think about your organization, bring forward ideas and things that you currently measure, how you measure that, and what you've got questions about in terms of what you want to measure going forward. So that would be my answer on that one. So I don't see any other questions. Feel free, again, to send me anything directly. I'm happy to talk more about this. But again, I just want to thank everybody for being a part of the program and certainly taking the call today. Thank you to everybody. And I should have mentioned Jason as well on the call. So thanks, folks. And hopefully this has been informative. And hopefully you have a great rest of the day. And thank you for your patience. All the best.